this 1960s RCA Victor Transistor 6 radio here that I tried to restore about a year ago, and it didn't work. I don't know if it was because of me or because of the radio. And I ordered some pretty high dollar DIY kits for some analog recording gear, and Fressy wants attention. So I figured I better practice, and so I decided to turn this into a guitar amp. So I have a couple other these little 9-volt amps, so I kind of copied the schematic, and I'll show you how I did it. So I have the input jack going into where the dial was, and I converted the volume for the amp, and then I put an on-off switch right here. That's the only cutting. Everything else I did was in the housing already. All right, if we look inside it, I blanked out the PCB and just kind of wired the components in it. And some of these things are here already, but I put in the input jack and some of these capacitors, a little amplifier, runs off a 9-volt battery, and I wired that into the original volume dial. It's the original speaker from the 60s, and I put this other switch in and I have it run off this 9-volt battery, and it's cat powered. So yeah, it's pretty neat. It was something to practice on so I can get ready for these kind of expensive DIY recording equipment kits that I bought. So let's have a listen to it. So I figured I would add the schematic for the those of y'all who actually know how to read these things. I'm kind of trying to learn. So I just kind of copied what I saw in the little 9-volt battery amp that I have already, but it didn't have a volume pot, and so I wanted to add one of those. So I found this one online, but it had like a headphone jack and an LED, a bunch of stuff I didn't want to mess with. So this is kind of like a mix between the two that I made. But it's of course, the 9-volt battery into the switch and the speaker kind of did like a negative and positive power negative rail. And then, of course, the I don't know what the pot is because it was already in. It was only testing like around 5K. It says to use a 10K pot, but I just used what was already in there, and it seems to work just fine. The amp was a little LM386 amp that I had laying around, and so the routing here, the capacitor was a 470 microfarad, 16 volt. This one was a 4.7 microfarad, a 10 microfarad, and a 100 microfarad. I called for 16 volts in all. I think I used like 25 volts, maybe 40 volts, just whatever I had, pretty close as I could get. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Super easy and fun to build. I'm just trying to practice these things so whenever my analog recording equipment stuff gets here, I'm not ruining those parts, but cool.